the table. Big tables. And they said
the Judiciary Committee for 17 years, or its ranking.
Have you seen about George
Have
Bush.
you seen that alien video?
But listen to what he has to say as to what kind of powers a president.
What do you think, Cyber? Do you think I've seen it? That would be like me asking you if you've seen that China military might video. You're like, oh yeah, I'm all over it, bro. I'm watching it all day. I've got it on constant loop. I got a strike on my YouTube channel.
Oh, what?
Medical misinfo because I was debunking Jimmy Dore, who is a liar, a fat fucking liar. Hey, Karen. Hey, Michael Haskey. What's up, guys? Thank you for joining.
It's not on the Discord.
God damn it, Cyber! Not again, man! No! Okay, it's on. Let me see. Oh, dude, Instagram's back. Dude, Instagram's working again, everybody. We're live on IG. Unreal.
Nice.
Yeah, man, they gave me a link. Let me see if it goes live now. Wait. Hold. Okay, there it goes. It was taking a while. But we're live, man. We're live on the IG again. So, hey, Moo. Okay, so it's so good.
No.
Everybody is showing up again. I'm so glad to hear that my friend Dusty Smith, who does Cult of Dusty on YouTube, and he's the first YouTuber that I followed. Him and Thunderfoot were two of the first YouTubers that I ever followed. And then a few years later, I stopped following Dusty because he was getting racist. He was mimicking African Americans and trying to talk like he was a black man. And I found it really offensive because he did it at the worst times. And one day somebody came into my chat and they were like, I mentioned his racism years later. This was like 3 years ago, 4 years ago. And so I was like, dude, he called himself out on his own racism. He said he wasn't going to do it anymore. He's changed. You should go check him out again. I was like, really? I'm like, that was the one thing I didn't like about Dusty. And they're like, yeah, bro, you should go check him out again. I was like, okay, I will. And I went over there and sure enough, dude, he's not doing that bullshit anymore. And I was just so impressed. And because all of his content, I really enjoy it. Second thing I see is Drake playing with, waving at me. What? Sounds like a Michael Jackson move. Like Michael Jackson used to grab his dick and like go, hi!
No.
I don't know, Taco, but we had tacos for lunch. I just want you to know that. Why not taco? We had a taco. Why not taco? Trying to lose some weight. I was pretty heavy today at the doctor's, so I'm just saying. Man, my medical insurance. Check this out. So, my medical insurance is going to be costing me probably over $12,000 this year just for the insurance.
Jesus Christ.
The procedure that I'm having done in a few days, which is just a scan for my heart, just a heart scan. It's called a CT with contrast. You drink some water. $9,000 that procedure costs.
That shit is free in Denmark.
Yeah, well, my insurance
is almost half year ago.
That's almost just that one procedure almost makes my insurance cover my entire year, and now everything after that's just going to be gravy. I'm going to be.
That's insane.
I'm going to be going to a lot of doctors' visits this year. I'm going to be getting my money's worth.
I don't know how much that procedure costs, but it definitely don't cost $9,000. It don't cost $9,000 for that shit you need to drink and to run that fucking machine. I mean, it just don't.
Hey, but you gotta pay for the machine. It's an expensive machine. Who's paying for the machine? I'm paying for the machine. That's who. I guarantee you that machine's probably like $1 million or more. But yeah, I'm sure that machine's a big money maker by now. It's probably, that machine's way in the black. They probably had it since like 1985. All right, let's see here. Orange. Token Tony Z, hello. Romaine Haskey, Michael Haskey on another account. What's up? We got Imani Monet. What's up, Imani Monet? Michael Haskey on the IG. Yes. Our time to smoke will be 5:45. I like that. 5:45. I typed nowhere. 5:45. Enter. Okay. 43,100 looks good to me on the Bitcoin. That's good. That's good, good, good. We need to stop and start our waterfall, obviously. There we go. Yes. Maybe we'll turn the waterfall sounds up. Why not? Okay, I said 5:45, right? 5:45, great. Cyber, cheers. Everyone cheers. No law regarding cannabis.
Yeah, bro.
Okay.
Cheers, everybody.
That's cool, Tony. The numbers, the smoke numbers come up early before.
Second.
Read what Tony said in the Rumble chat.
What Tony said, he just said hello, right? And cheers. And it's the delay.
I'm sorry, it was Michael Haskey, not Tony. My bad. It was Michael Haskey and Token Tony Z. They're finishing each other's thoughts.
I don't see Michael Haskey.
It's Romaine.
No, I do.
Yeah, Romaine Haskey. You know the numbers show up on chat before you even say them. Then Tony goes, "It's the delay," and then
Yeah,
Michael goes, "It sure is." Pleasant sounds of the waterfall. So anyway, as much as I've complained how much I'm paying for medical insurance this year, guys, I really had to get my heart looked at. My hypertension is inexcusable for someone who blows up, 3 times a day like I do. I'm working on a heart attack. I've been getting chest pains. I've been getting numbness in my left arm. And I don't want to wait for it to just happen and then have to get bypass surgery or something. I want to stop it before it happens.
Fuck that shit.
Hello, Noah. Noah, Michael and Romaine's grandson. Noah is watching. We're starting the waterfall video from the beginning right now. I just saw the loop. Nay's Garden
You
Show.
see those like that get offered for free or whatever. Like when you get up in the age. They kind of just tell you if you want it.
What's that, Cyber?
I said those procedures are kind of free over here, They just kind of... Last time I was at the doctor, they kind of told me it was probably a good idea.
Just go get it done.
They told me that the last few years it was probably a good idea every time I went to the doctor.
Yeah.
So I think 6 months ago, last year something, I got one. Didn't cost anything. I didn't even have to prompt it myself, So.
Noah laughed and ran away when I said hello to him. He's 3 years old. All right, so I've got a video for you guys. It's Chris Hedges speaking about the death of Israel, how a settler colonial state destroyed itself. It's a harsh reality, man. Israel wanted to be the world's hero, and now they have turned into the world's supervillain, and everybody fucking hates Israel. And you know what? Hashtag everybody hates Israel. Hashtag everyone hates Israel. It's everyone. Hashtag everyone hates Israel. You know, I'm hashtagging that on Twitter right now. Everyone fucking hates Israel, and they've done it to themselves. All right, anyway, this is a very fun and happy video we're going to be watching. This is Chris Hedges. He knows what he's talking about. Give him a listen.
These Israelis saw the same images you and I see.
He's talking about the Holocaust.
Children with amputated limbs.
And I just want to tell you this. He's speaking about the Holocaust, and he spoke about the Holocaust for like 4 or 5 minutes straight. He spoke about the horrors of the Holocaust. And he was explicit about it. Okay? So there's no question as to where he stands on whether or not it happened.
The chalky, lifeless body in Africa to accept Palestinian refugees. Israeli leaders are calling this deportation, quote, voluntary migration.
Okay, the whole thing just rewound itself. I don't know what time I was at before it did that, so it just went back a whole bunch. I think we were okay. He was talking about the Holocaust. So let me just see.
As they danced, there are no uninvolved civilians. As evidence that genocidal intent descends from the top to the bottom.
Hold on.
In the creation of the State of Israel, a narrative embraced by the Holocaust Museum.
Here it is.
Washington,
Okay,
D.C.
so he's talking about the Holocaust. All right, and then we're going to go into what he says
Contemporary
next.
history of the Third Reich, he writes,
He's still talking about it.
be reread as a war against memory, an Orwellian falsification of memory, falsification of reality, negation of reality. He wonders if we who have returned have been able to understand and make others understand our experience.
I'm getting a dab ready.
We all inhabit a morally gray zone. We all can be induced to become part of the apparatus of death, often for trivial reasons and paltry rewards. This is the terrifying truth of the Holocaust.
See?
And the Israelis are no exception.
See?
1 month into the genocide, according to a poll in Time magazine, 57% of Israelis believed Israel was not using enough force in Gaza.
You hear this?
These Israelis saw the same images you and I see.
Of the Holocaust.
Children
of
with
Gaza.
amputated limbs.
Right.
The chalky, lifeless bodies.
Here you go.
Lifted out from under the rubble. The long trenches filled with corpses wrapped in white shrouds. Screams of the wounded in the hospital corridors. Only 2% of Israelis said Israel was using too much force.
Can you believe that? But at least there's 2%.
South African lawyers
That's a start.
at The Hague, who compared Israel's crimes with those carried out by the apartheid regime in South Africa, showed the court a video of Israeli soldiers celebrating, calling for the death of Palestinians. They sang as they danced, "There are no
Right on
uninvolved
it.
civilians." As evidence that genocidal intent descends from the top to the bottom of the Israeli war machine and political system. Racism, an attribute of all colonial settler societies, whether the British colonists in India and Kenya or the French in Algeria, pervades Israeli society. Palestinians are seen as vermin, to be controlled or exterminated.
Sounds like
It is very
Netanyahu.
hard not to be cynical about the plethora of university courses about the Holocaust, given the censorship and banning of groups such as Students for Justice in Palestine and Jewish Voices for Peace. What is the point of studying the Holocaust if you do not understand its fundamental lesson? When you have the capacity to stop genocide, and you do not, you are culpable. It is hard not to be cynical about the humanitarian interventionists, Barack Obama, Tony Blair, Hillary Clinton, Joe Biden, Samantha Power,
Hey, Crispy
who
Cat.
talk in sanctimonious rhymes about the responsibility to protect,
17
but are
minutes.
silent about war crimes when speaking out would threaten their status and careers. None of the humanitarian interventions they championed, Bosnia,
Cushy.
Darfur, Libya, came close to replicating the
Cushy Monster wants to know why I'm not live on YouTube, because I got a strike on YouTube for medical misinformation for calling Jimmy Dore out for his medical misinformation on YouTube that YouTube doesn't ever block. Never fucking strikes Jimmy Dore for it. Only strikes me for straightening the record. For a few people, for just a handful of people, while Jimmy Dore speaks to millions, lies to millions. It's comical. Fuck YouTube.
suffering.
You should be watching on.
Gaza.
Hey, Cushy Monster 710. You should be watching on Rumble anyway.
But there is a cost to defending Palestinians, a cost they do not intend to pay.
Cyber cheers. Everyone cheers. No law regarding
The
cannabis.
moral universe has now been turned
Yes,
upside
Ron.
down.
Cheers, everybody.
Those of us who oppose genocide are accused of advocating it. Those who carry out genocide are said to have the right to defend themselves. Vetoing ceasefires and providing 2,000-pound bombs to Israel that throw out metal fragments for thousands of feet in densely packed refugee camps is the road to peace. Refusing to negotiate will free the hostages. Bombing hospitals, schools, mosques, churches, ambulances, and refugee camps, obliterating families, are routine acts of war. Carrying out genocide in Gaza is a way to de-radicalize Palestinians. Attacking Houthi bases in Yemen will de-escalate a regional conflict. And remember, it is not only Israel which has abandoned its citizens held hostage in Gaza. There are hundreds of Palestinians who are U.S. citizens or permanent residents trapped in Gaza, and the Biden administration is making no discernible effort demanded by U.S. law to secure their safety. None of this makes sense, as protesters around the world realize. If the genocide in Gaza is not halted,
Dude, when someone like Chris Hedges says this, people listen, everybody. I mean, I can sit and talk about it for months. Nobody gives a fuck. This is fucking Chris Hedges.
it will presage a new world order. A world where the old rules, more honored in the breach than the observance, no longer matter. It will be a world where nations with vast bureaucratic structures and technologically advanced military systems carry out in public view massive killing projects. The industrialized nations, weakened, fearful of global chaos, are sending an ominous message to the global south and anyone who might think of revolt. We will kill you without restraint, and no one will stop us. One day, you will all be Palestinians. I fear that we live in a world in which war and racism are ubiquitous, in which the powers of government mobilization and legitimization are powerful and increasing, in which a sense of personal responsibility is increasingly attenuated by specialization and bureaucratization, in which the peer group exerts tremendous pressure on behavior and sets moral norms. Christopher Browning writes in Ordinary Men about a German reserve police battalion in World War II that was ultimately responsible for the murder of 83,000 Jews. In such a world, I fear, modern governments that wish to commit mass murder will seldom fail in their efforts for being unable to induce ordinary men to become their willing executioners. Evil is protean, it mutates, it finds new forms and expressions, it changes its face, but not its essence. Germany orchestrated the murder of 6 million Jews, as well as over 6 million gypsies, Poles, homosexuals, communists, Jehovah's Witnesses, Freemason, artists, journalists, Soviet prisoners of war, people with physical and intellectual disabilities, and political opponents. It immediately set out after the war to expiate itself for its crimes. It deftly transferred its racism and demonization
Book of Enoch,
to
what's
Muslims,
up, buddy?
with racial supremacy remaining firmly rooted in the German psyche. At the same time, Germany and the U.S. rehabilitated
43,177.
former Nazis, especially from the intelligence services and the scientific community, and did little to prosecute those who directed Nazi war crimes. Germany today is Israel's second largest arms supplier following the U.S. The supposed campaign in the U.S. and Germany against anti-Semitism, interpreted as any statement that is critical of the state of Israel or denounces the genocide, is the latest subterfuge to champion white power. It is why Germany and the U.S., which have effectively criminalized support for Palestinians, and the most retrograde white supremacists, including philo-Semites such as John Hagee or Marjorie Taylor Greene, fervently back Israel. The Israeli historian Ilan Pappé writes that Germany's unequivocal support for Israel is a form of blackmail. The argument for a Jewish state as compensation for the Holocaust was a powerful argument, so powerful that nobody listened to the outright rejection of the UN solution by the overwhelming majority of the people of Palestine, Pape writes. What comes out clearly is a European wish to atone. The basic and natural rights of the Palestinians should be sidelined, dwarfed and forgotten altogether for the sake of the forgiveness that Europe was seeking from the newly formed Jewish state. It was much easier to rectify the Nazi evil vis-a-vis a Zionist movement than facing the Jews of the world in general. It was less complex, and more importantly, it did not involve facing the victims of the Holocaust themselves, but rather a state that claimed to represent them. The price for this more convenient atonement was robbing the Palestinians of every basic and natural right they had, and allowing the Zionist movement to ethnically cleanse them without fear of any rebuke or condemnation. I knew Dr. Abdul Aziz al-Rantisi, the co-founder of Hamas, along with Sheikh Yassin. Al-Rantisi's family were expelled to the Gaza Strip by Zionist militias from historic Palestine during the 1948 Arab-Israeli War.
Wow.
He did not fit the demonized image of a Hamas leader. He was a soft-spoken, articulate, and highly educated pediatrician who had graduated first in his class at Egypt's Alexandria University. As a 9-year-old boy, he had witnessed in Han Yunis the executions of 275 Palestinian men and boys, including his uncle, when Israel briefly occupied the Gaza Strip in 1956, the subject of Joe Sacco's magisterial book, Footnotes in Gaza. Scores of Palestinians were also executed by Israeli soldiers in the neighboring town of Rafah, where today hundreds of thousands of Palestinians have been forced to flee now that Han Yunis is under attack. I still remember the wailing and the tears of my father.
Hey, Enoch, welcome, bro. Thank you.
Me. I couldn't sleep for many months after that. It left a wound in my heart that can never heal. I'm telling you a story and I'm almost crying. This sort of action can never be forgotten. They planted hatred in our hearts. He knew
420, guys.
trust the Israelis. He knew that the goal of the Zionist state was the occupation of all of historic Palestine and Israel.
Gotta go bullpack,
would go on to
Severn.
seize Gaza and
I'm
the
in
West
the
Bank
process.
in 1967, along with Syria's Golan Heights and Egypt's Sinai Peninsula. And he knew the eternal subjugation or extermination of the Palestinian people was the goal of the Zionist movement. Al-Rantisi and Yassin were assassinated in 2004 by Israel. Al-Rantisi's widow, Jamila Abdallah Taha El-Shanti, had a doctorate in English and taught at the Islamic University in Gaza. The couple had 6 children, one of whom was killed along with his father. The family's home, where I visited them, was bombed and destroyed. During the 2014
Cheers, Cyber. Cheers,
Israeli
everyone. No
assault
law
on
regarding
Gaza,
cannabis.
known
Happy
as
420.
Operation
On the
Cheers,
420.
Cheers, bro. Cheers, everybody.
Jamila was killed by Israel on October 19th of this year. Israel's genocide is rearing a new generation of enraged, traumatized, and dispossessed Palestinians who have lost family members, friends, homes, communities, and any hope of living ordinary lives. And they too will seek retribution. Their small acts of terrorism will counter Israel's state terror. They will hate as they have been hated. And this lust for vengeance is universal. After World War II, a clandestine unit of Jews who served in the Jewish Brigade of the British Army hunted down former Nazis and assassinated them. To understand is not to condone, but we must understand if this cycle of violence is to be stopped. I and the public know what all school children learned. W.H. Auden wrote, "Those to whom evil is done do evil in return."
Hey, hippie chick.
Palestinian attacks of October 7th,
Hey,
which
you
left
check.
some 1,200 Israelis dead, feeds this lust within Israel, just as Israel's 17-year siege and obliteration of Gaza feeds this lust among Palestinians. There is little discussion in the Israeli media of the slaughter in Gaza or the suffering of Palestinians, some 2 million of whom have been driven from their homes, but a constant repetition of the stories of Israeli suffering, death, and heroism. Only our victims matter. The shooting dead of the 3 Israeli hostages who apparently escaped their captors and approached Israeli forces with their shirts off, waving a white flag, and calling out for help in Hebrew is not only tragic, but a glimpse of Israel's rules of engagement in Gaza. These rules are: kill anything that moves. Israel may appear triumphant after it finishes its genocidal campaign in Gaza and increasingly the West Bank. It may achieve its demented goal. Its murderous rampages and genocidal violence may exterminate or ethnically cleanse Palestinians. Its dream of a state exclusively for Jews, with any Palestinians who remain stripped of their basic rights, may be realized. At that point, it will revel in its blood-soaked victory. It will celebrate its war criminals. Its genocide will be erased from public consciousness and tossed into Israel's huge black hole of historical amnesia. And those with a conscience in Israel will be silenced and persecuted. But by the time Israel achieves its decimation of Gaza, and Israel is talking about months of warfare, it will have signed its own death sentence. Its facade of civility, its supposed vaunted respect for the rule of law and democracy, its mythical story of the courageous Israeli military and miraculous birth of the Jewish nation will lie in ash heaps. Israel's social capital will be spent. Liberal Zionism, always an oxymoron, since Israelis never intended to give equal rights to Palestinians, has already been replaced by religious Zionism. Religious Zionism gives divine sanction to an ugly, repressive, hate-filled apartheid regime, deeply alienating younger generations of Americans, including Jews. Its patron, the United States, as new generations come to power, will distance itself from Israel and religious Zionism the way it is distancing itself from Ukraine. Israel's support will come from America's Christianized fascists who see Israel's domination of ancient biblical land as a harbinger of the second coming, and in its subjugation of Arabs, a kindred racism. Despotisms can exist long after their past due date, but they are terminal. You don't have to be a biblical scholar to see that Israel's lust for rivers of blood is antithetical to the core values of Judaism. The cynical weaponization of the Holocaust, including branding Palestinians as Nazis, has little efficacy when you carry out a live-streamed genocide against 2.3 million people trapped in a concentration camp. Nations need more than force to survive. They need a mystique. This mystique provides purpose, civility, and even nobility to inspire citizens to sacrifice for the nation. This mystique offers much.
It's Chris Hedges. He's somebody who spent a lot of time in prisons, rehabilitating, educating prisoners, advocating for people. He spent, I think, 7 years like editor type position at one of the largest newspapers in the United States. He's a well-known author and a world-renowned speaker, and that's what he's doing right here.
Much of it once embodied in liberal Zionism, hope for the future. It provides meaning. It provides national identity.
Beta Bruce.
When mystiques implode, when
Well,
they are
we've been
exposed
live
as
now for
lies,
32
the
minutes,
central
but that's
foundation of state power
good
collapses.
enough.
I reported on the death of the communist mystiques in 1989 during the revolutions in East Germany, Czechoslovakia, and Romania. The police and the military decided there was nothing left to defend. Israel's decay will engender the same lassitude and apathy. It will become harder and harder to recruit indigenous collaborators such as Mahmoud Abbas and the Palestinian Authority, reviled by most Palestinians, to do the bidding of the colonizers. All Israel has left is escalating violence, including the widespread use of torture, which accelerates the decline.
Hey, Pinoy.
Wholesale violence works
Dude,
in the
here.
short term, as it did in the
Pinoy.
war.
Yes,
What's up, son?
everything's good, dude.
Bro, check this out. Check this out. My cat
Yeah.
is showing my fiance's cat right now how to roll around in the sand to camouflage himself. My cat, and he's laying down. Now the other cat's laying down in the sand like my cat was. My cat has done this since he was young. Wherever he is, he finds the sand, wherever the dirt is, he rolls around in it and gets leaves and shit all over him like a little ghillie suit. Yeah, like a little sniper. Like a little sniper motherfucker. Yeah, that's what my cat does. He just taught. Now this cat's doing it now. Oh my god, dude, I can't believe it. Dude, the other cat. I don't know if you can see, bro. Oh my god, where's my goddams? Hold on, let me just get my camera, bro. I don't believe this. I don't believe this is happening.
He's like teaching the other cat, dude. That's dope. Hey, Cyber man, a freaking tree fell on my car, bro. I know, Nate told me, man. I'm glad that you guys are okay, man. Yeah, I appreciate that very much, man. For real. Yeah. Yeah, Nate told me about it, man. Jesus fucking Christ. Yeah, the car's still here because the tow truck can't get up here yet, but I was able to, like, squeeze by with the neighbors and go get a rental. Here, I'll show you guys.
I'll tell you what's going on over here. Crazy. I got all the power back up and running.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
Panoy, listen, you're hijacking my stream. We're watching something, okay?
Oh, okay. My
Yeah.
bad.
No, it's okay. It's
Go
okay.
ahead, bro.
We're right in the middle of something. We're watching this thing about.
I'll show 'em later. I'll show 'em later.
You could show them, but just let us do this while you're walking around and shit. Just so you know.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
Let's do it.
Yep.
Waged
I'm
by
a mute,
French and
dude.
Algeria, the dirty war waged by Argentina's military dictatorship, and during Britain's conflict in Kenya and Northern Ireland. But in the long term,
Panoy's a hijacker.
suicidal.
I haven't heard that word in a long
Israel
time.
may
A hijacker.
wipe out the current Hamas leadership, but the past,
Oh,
current
bro,
assassinations of
bro.
Palestinian
Wow.
That sucks, man. Dude, hold on,
Jesus
dude.
Christ.
Oh, fucking A, bro. Dude.
Yeah, she's done, dude.
Wow, I'm sorry, man.
Fucking A, bro. That's some fucking slammage. That tree.
Dude, 3,000-pound oak, bro. Savage.
Fucking A, bro.
leaders has done little to blunt resistance. The siege and genocide in Gaza has produced a new generation, prepared to take the place of martyred leaders. Israel has sent the stock of its adversary into the stratosphere. Israel was already at war with itself before October 7th. Israelis were protesting to prevent Netanyahu's abolition of judicial independence. The religious bigots and Zionist fanatics currently in power had mounted a determined attack on secularism. Israel's unity since the attack is precarious. It is a negative unity. It is held together by hatred. And even this hatred is not enough to keep protesters from decrying the government's abandonment of Israeli hostages in Gaza. Hatred is a dangerous political commodity. Once finished with one enemy, those who stoke hatred go in search of
Hippie
another.
chick said she's sorry about your car, bro.
Palestinian, quote-unquote, human animals, when eradicated.
You're muted. Panoy, you're muted, bro. You muted yourself? We can't hear you, just so you
Yeah.
know. Okay, there you go. We hear you now.
I make sure to mute myself whenever I'm like doing something. I was
Cool.
eating one of my
Cool. What were you saying?
I said thank you very much. I appreciate that, guys, very much.
There you go.
Or subdued, will be replaced by disloyal Palestinians with Israeli citizenship already targeted by a series of discriminatory laws, along with Jewish apostates and traitors. The demonized group can never be redeemed or cured.
43-2, guys.
Politics of hatred creates a permanent instability that is exploited by those seeking the destruction of civil society. The Israeli scholar Yeshayahu Leibowitz, who Isaiah Berlin called the conscience of Israel, warned that, quote, if Israel did not separate church and state, it would give rise to a corrupt rabbinate that would warp Judaism into a fascistic cult. Religious nationalism is to religion what National Socialism was to socialism, warned Leibowitz, who died in 1994. He understood that the blind veneration of the military, especially after the 1967 war, was dangerous and will lead to the ultimate destruction of democracy. Our situation will deteriorate to that of a second Vietnam, to a war and constant escalation without prospect of ultimate resolution, he wrote. He foresaw that the Arabs would be the working people and the Jews the administrators, inspectors, officials, and police, mainly secret police. A state ruling a hostile population of 1.5 million to 2 million foreigners would necessarily become a secret police state, with all that implies for education, free speech, and democratic institutions. The corruption characteristic of every colonial regime would also prevail in the state of Israel. The administration would have to suppress Arab insurgency on the one hand and acquire Arab Quislings on the other. There is also good reason to fear that the Israel Defense Force, which has been until now a people's army, would, as a result of being transformed into an army of occupation, to generate, and its commanders will become military governors, will resemble their colleagues in other nations. He saw the rise of virulent racism that will consume Israeli society. He knew that prolonged occupation of the Palestinians would spawn, in his words, concentration camps for the occupied, and as he wrote, Israel would not deserve to exist, and it would not be worthwhile to preserve it. Jews, he understood, can also become Pharaoh. The decision to obliterate Gaza has long been the dream of Israeli fanatics, heirs of the fascistic movement led by the extremist Meir Kahane, who I knew and covered, who was barred from running for office and whose Koch party was outlawed in 1994 and declared a terrorist organization by Israel and the United States. They championed the iconography and language of their homegrown fascism. Jewish identity and Jewish nationalism are the Zionist versions of blood and soil. Jewish supremacy is sanctified by God, as is the slaughter of the Palestinians, who are compared to the biblical Amalekites massacred by the Israelis. Enemies, usually Muslims, slated for extinction are subhuman. Violence and the threat of violence are the only forms of communication those outside the magic circle of Jewish nationalism understand. Millions of Muslims and Christians, including those with Israeli citizenship, are to be purged. The Biden presidency, which ironically may have signed its own political death certificate, is tethered to Israel's genocide. It tries to distance itself rhetorically, but at the same time it funnels the billions of dollars of weapons demanded by Israel, including $14.3 billion in supplemental military aid to augment the $3.8 billion in annual aid to, quote unquote, finish the job. It is a full partner in Israel's genocidal project. There is no way to deny the courage of the armed Palestinian resistance, whether you accept their ideology or not, as they face down one of the most advanced military machines on the planet with little more than small arms. But there are also other forms of resistance that, to me, are as important. Writers, poets, journalists, and photographers, many of whom have been targeted and killed by Israel, affirm the belief that one day, a day the writers, journalists, and photographers may never see, the words and images will provoke empathy, understanding, outrage, and provide wisdom. They chronicle not only the facts, although the facts are important, but the texture, sacredness, and grief of lives and communities lost. They tell the world what this genocide is like, how those caught in its maw of death endure, how there are those who sacrifice for others and those who do not, what fear and hunger are like, what death is like. They transmit the cries of the children, the wails of grief of the mothers, the daily struggle in the face of savage industrial violence, the triumph of their humanity through filth, sickness, humiliation, and fear. This is why writers, photographers, and journalists are targeted by aggressors in war, including the Israelis. They stand as witnesses to evil, and evil the aggressors want buried and forgotten. They expose the lies. They condemn, even from the grave, their killers. Israel has killed at least 13 Palestinian poets and writers, along with over 83 journalists and media workers in Gaza, and 3 in Lebanon since October 7th. I experienced futility and outrage when I covered wars for 2 decades in Central America, the Middle East, Africa, and the Balkans. I wondered if I had done enough, or if it was even worth the risk. But you go on, because to do nothing is to be complicit. You report because you care. You make it hard for the killers to deny their crimes. And this brings me to the Palestinian novelist and playwright, Atif Abu Saif. He and his 15-year-old son, Yasser, who live in the occupied West Bank, were visiting family in Gaza, where he was born, when Israel began its scorched earth campaign. Atif is no stranger to the violence of the Israeli occupiers. He was 2 months old during the 1973 war and writes, "I've been living through wars ever since. Just as life is a pause between two deaths, Palestine as a place and as an idea is a timeout in the middle of many wars." During Operation Cast Lead, the 2008-2009 Israeli assault on Gaza, Atif sheltered in the corridor of his Gaza family home for 22 nights with his wife, Hannah, and 2 children, while Israel bombed and shelled. His book, The Drone Eats With Me, Diaries from a City Under Fire, is an account of Operation Protective Edge, the 2014 Israeli assault on Gaza that killed 1,523 Palestinian civilians, including 519 children. Memories of war can be strangely positive, because to have them at all means you must have survived, he notes sardonically. He did what writers do, including the professor and poet Rifat al-Arir, who was killed, along with Rifat's brother, sister, and her 4 children in an airstrike on his sister's apartment in Gaza on December 7th. Atif once again, finding himself living amid the explosions and carnage from Israeli shells and bombs, doggedly publishes his observations and reflections. His accounts are often difficult to transmit because of Israel's blockage of internet and phone service. On the first day of the Israeli bombardment, a friend, a young poet and musician, Omar Abu Shawish, is killed, apparently in an Israeli naval bombardment, though later reports would say he was killed in an airstrike as he was walking to work. Atif wonders about the Israeli soldiers watching him and his family with their infrared lenses and satellite photography. Can they count the loaves of bread in my basket or the number of falafel balls on my plate, he wonders. He watches the crowds of dazed and confused families, their homes in rubble, carrying mattresses, bags of clothes, food, and drink. He stands mutely before the supermarket, the bureau de change, the falafel shop, the fruit stalls, the perfume parlor, the sweet shop, the toy shop, all burned. Blood was everywhere, along with bits of kids' toys, cans from the supermarket, smashed fruit, broken bicycles, and shattered perfume bottles, he writes. The place looked like a charcoal drawing of a town, scorched by a dragon. I went to the press house where journalists were frantically downloading images and writing reports for their agencies. I was sitting with Bilal, the press house manager, when an explosion shook the building. Windows shattered and the ceiling collapsed onto us in chunks. We ran toward the central hall. One of the journalists was bleeding, having been hit by flying glass. After 20 minutes, we ventured out to inspect the damage. I noticed that Ramadan decorations were still hanging in the street. The city has become a wasteland of rubble and debris. Atif, who has been the Palestinian Authority's Minister of Culture since 2019, writes in the early days of the Israeli shelling. Beautiful buildings fall like columns of smoke. I often think about the time I was shot as a kid during the first Intifada, and how my mother told me I actually died for a few minutes before being brought back to life. Maybe I can do the same this time, I think. He leaves his teenage son with family members. The Palestinian logic is that in wartime we should all sleep in different places, so that if part of the family is killed, another part lives, he writes. The UN schools are getting more crowded with displaced families. The hope is that the UN flag will save them, though in previous wars this hasn't been the case. On Tuesday, October 17th, he writes, I see death approaching hear its steps growing louder. Just to be
Hey,
done
what's
with
up,
it, I
Billy?
think. It's the 11th day of the
Hey
conflict,
there, Billy.
but all the days have merged into one. The same bombardment, the same fear, the same smell. On the news, I read the names of the dead on the ticker at the bottom of the screen. I wait for my name to appear. In the morning, my phone rang. It was Rula, a relative in the West Bank, telling me she had heard there'd been an airstrike at Talat Hawa, a neighborhood on the south side of Gaza City, where my cousin Hatem lives. Hatem is married to Huda, my wife's only sister. He lives in a 4-story building that houses his mother and brothers and their families. I called around, but no one's phone was working. I walked to Al-Shifa Hospital to read the names. Lists of the dead are pinned up daily outside a makeshift morgue. I could barely approach the building. Thousands of Gazans had made the hospital their home, its gardens, its hallways. Every empty space or spare corner had a family in it. I gave up and headed toward Hatem's. 30 minutes later, I was on his street. Rula had been right. Huda and Hatem's building had been hit only an hour earlier. The bodies of their daughter and grandchild had already been retrieved. The only known survivor was Wissam, one of their other daughters, who had been taken to the ICU. Wissam had gone straight into surgery, where both of her legs and her right hand had been amputated. Her graduation ceremony from art college had taken place only the day before. She has to spend the rest of her life without legs, with one hand. What about the others? I asked someone. We can't find them, came the reply. Amid the rubble, we shouted, "Hello! Can anyone hear us?" We called out the names of those still missing, hoping some might still be alive. By the end of the day, we managed to find 5 bodies, including that of a 3-month-old. We went to the cemetery to bury them. In the evening, I went to see Wissam in the hospital. She was barely awake. After half an hour, she asked me, "Uncle, I'm dreaming, right?" I said, "We are all in a dream. My dream is terrifying. Why?"
Hey,
All
there
our
you
dreams are
smoking?
terrifying. After 10 minutes of silence, she said, "Don't lie to me, Uncle. In my dream, I don't
No,
have
I'm
legs.
good.
It's true, isn't it?
I gotta
have no
go.
legs. But you said it's a dream. I don't like this dream."
But we will continue this Chris Hedges viewing, you guys, and thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the hour. Cyber Pinoy, thank you. Everybody.